Originally, I intended the first clip in this series to be envisioning and pitching the campaign, but it wouldn't fit within the time limit that I'd like to keep these under. So, I've split the clip into 3 separate parts: envisioning the campaign, pitching the campaign, and then an example of these steps. This is part 1, envisioning the campaign. I hope you enjoy it. All right. I think the primary point is that to run a long-term campaign in this style, with characters and players who are invested in moving through it, it's important to understand, first of all, that the initial campaign creation process will be collaborative. And I don't mean sitting down and plotting out story points, really. What I'm talking about is this: that when you get the inkling or the urge to start a game and you decide you're going to run it this way, you will need to start with determining what setting and system interests you at this time as the game master. What system do you want to run? What setting do you want to run it in? And then bounce that off your players. All right. Get a good sense of what level of difficulty they are looking forward to this time. If they want to do a class-based or skill-based system, if they want to do fantasy, modern, sci-fi, whatever. Measure your drive to run a particular game against their drives to play it, and compromise. Now, this really is your first pitch in what will be 2 pitches. We'll get into what a pitch is like later on in the clip, but this stage is your first pitch, determining what everybody at the table wants to play. Once you've got that, then determine what sort of characters the group wishes to run as a whole. Same thing. Do they want to have characters assigned to them? Do they want to pick from pre-generated characters? Do they want to do random generation? Do they want to use point buy and design their own characters? Do they want to play inexperienced beginner characters, or journeyman, or intermediate or experienced characters this time? In what sort of environment? So you're surveying them. Nothing new. And then determine the group dynamic among the characters and their various relatives and associates. So you'd say, what kind of characters do you want to play? And they would start giving you answers like, we'd like to do a classic dungeon crawl, or we'd like to do interstellar trade as a group of struggling entrepreneurs. Okay? So you have that idea. Then, right from the very beginning, carry it forward into what kind of people are around you. Right? Who are your friends? Who are your enemies? That sort of thing. Not statting out characters yet, but getting a sense of how these characters relate to a world. Because we're laying down the framework of what kind of world is it? What kind of social conventions does it have? What kind of stories are we interested in creating and exploring? And that requires a certain amount of connectivity to the world. Okay. Envisioning and pitching the campaign starts here. The whole beginning is collaborative. Then, once you have all of these answers, you go off and you get to do your own bit of creation. Now, the characters have worked out, or the players have worked out between them, what type of characters they're going to play, and they're secluded away with the rules, and they're building their characters based on what the group decided would work. So, at the same time, you're going off and you will determine the recent history of the setting leading up to your Scene 1. And you might not know what Scene 1 is yet, and it's probably good not to know until you've seen the final version of the characters and everybody has worked out exactly how that group is going to function together as a unit. But you will start building ideas. Where are they going to live? What's going on in the world? What are people talking about? What are people not talking about? What do people want? what have people recently survived, that kind of thing. Answer the broad questions about your setting, just like you would in any other kind of campaign prep. Then, once you have a good sense of that, determine what things are going on right now and come down on a decision of where the characters will be launched into play. And this is where your actual pitch will happen. You've got tacit approval so far of what people would like, and they're starting to put together characters, and they're waiting for that final statement of, we're going to play this. Establish what is common knowledge in the setting and prepare players for their general starting point in the world. Right? So you're going to make them excited about what it is you're trying to do. So you're launching your real pitch, and in it you will establish what is common knowledge in the setting. Okay. Preparation. So I talked about setting up the campaign the same way you would normally do, but there's one caveat to that. During your preparation and during the group's survey and interaction about what kind of game they want to play in and what kind of characters they like to play, etc., at no point is a story planned. No story. In its place, you'll work on general and specific forces, such as social movements or individual NPCs. Give these things an initial course to follow, should nothing change. It's important that the players and their characters will be able to intuit, engage, interrupt, or anyway, interact with all of these events and courses and movements and characters, and that other groups of NPCs and other movements and groups, etc., 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 can do so as well. Everything is mutable. Everything is in flux. Everything is in motion. The world must be in motion. It must stay in motion at all times. It will wait for no one. It must continue on unless stopped, deflected, or otherwise delayed. The characters are not necessarily the main characters of the story. They are just characters in the story. If they earn the spotlight and keep it, they've got it. But right out of the gate, one of them might die. Their contribution to the story was that death, and their contribution to the group through the effect of that death. You see my point? They may not be main characters until they become main characters. The world will wait for no one. The world is always in motion. And so it's not reacting to what the characters do that drives play events. It's the world following its course. And all of these intersecting plots, plans, investigations, decisions, high hopes and dreams, the intersection of all of those creates story. So, I mentioned we talk about pitching. I also mentioned we keep these short. If anything I've said to this point is unclear or needs expansion, let's talk about it in the comments or in video replies. So far, nothing groundbreaking. There's not a lot of new skill to learn here at this point, and maybe not in the entire series. But it's the subtle interplay of all these different parts that produces this different feeling when playing in a simulation style. Bear with me, we'll get there. The next part is pitching the campaign.